You know, I would talk about the seed of exoconsciência in Brazil. Exoconsciência is the word in Brazil for exoconsciousness, and it's really an interesting story. And let's let's see. Yeah, the seed of exoconsciousness in Brazil. We're going from General Ushua work, which is, in my opinion, the very seed, the beginning of the exoconsciousness in Brazil, to the circle. There is the project we are going and working now. The circle is an exoconscious school of philosophy, an online exoconscious school of philosophy that we founded. So that's the story. Just a little bit about me, and I am Juliano Pozati. Pleased to meet you. 38, living in Brazil, degree in marketing, post degree in military strategy. Now I'm doing another graduation in philosophy. Filmmaker, writer, strengths coach, and but that's not a big deal about me. The big deal and the big story about me that no one knows is that I am the father of the next president of United Nations, which is Lorenzo Andretta Posati, my son, and I am also the prince and white horse of this young and beautiful lady, Juliana. That is the love of my heart and eyes. So that's the big deal and the big story about me. So I love these guys and just sharing a little bit. So now we are friends. You know my family, and I know a little bit about you. Um, okay, we founded here the Circle, that is a school, Exoconscious School of Philosophy, and I would share this quick video for you just to feel, as Maya was saying, the energy of exoconscious in Brazil. Yes, that's write to me on the chat. Write to me on the chat. That's so strange. I want to see your faces, smiling, your hands clapping, and I got nothing about amazing video like that. So write for me, please, on the chat. Chat to me. Chat to me. What do you think? That's the energy of exoconsciousness in Brazil. That's what we are doing and building here. And you will see. I'm about to share you how amazing and connected all the stories, my story, your story, all the works we are doing, how everything is connected, how everything's connected in this whole project. I remember the very first spiritual meeting we had with a channeling directly from one being that works with us. And he just said a phrase, a single phrase: the project is just one. We're just working under the same project. We are just following and building the same blueprint. We are all together, and you're going to see this hopefully at the end of this presentation. Let me bring this thought to you. It's so amazing because Arthur Schopenhauer really is an exoconscious guy. See, the task is not so much to see what no one has seen yet, but to think what nobody has thought yet about what everybody sees. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, that is the path. Everybody sees. Everybody sees the ufology, the objects, the ball of light. It is not, a secret subject anymore. Everybody sees. Everybody knows someone who saw, or someone who is an experience. It's all over our society. The question is not too much to see what no one has seen, but to think about it, to think about what nobody has thought yet about it. And that is exoconscious. That is the next step of ufology, the very beginning and the very end of this story, as Maya was saying. If we could consider a story of ufology, the very beginning is the exoconsciousness, and the end, the final curtain, is exoconsciousness. Yeah, just to, I know you listened her at the beginning of this morning, but my princess, the princess of exoconsciousness, we have to bring these foundations. I love to have conversations over foundations, over solid foundations. Exoconscious, remember, the ability of human conscious to connect, communicate, and co-create with extraterrestrials and multidimensional beings. An exoconscious civilization is not a utopia, it's a post-disclosure culture prospering with tools, technology, teaching, healing, and art co-created with ETs and multidimensional contact and communication, and an exoconscious human. There is a human who integrates, develops, and applies the extraterrestrial origins, dimensions, and abilities of their consciousness. That's the foundation of our work. But, but, let's say honestly, it sounds a little bit crazy, huh? To co-create an entire society and a civilization based on a relationship with ETs, it's not the kind of conversation that brings you a lot of friends and makes you popular, maybe in a party having a drinks. Hi, I am I used to co-create with ETs, and okay, I would say that some years ago. Really, I would say that. So that's the reason that I have to explain you why I am here. Because I am here because I just, I was just part of the publishing board of one of the most respected UFO magazines in the world here in Brazil. And there was this moment where the leader just came and said, okay, we decided to split ufology in scientific and spiritual because it has to be split. And I don't know. And I just look at that and hear that and say, I am not agree. It's completely crazy to talk about it. We are multidimensional beings. The spiritual dimension, it's it's just a fundamental part of who we are, of our story, and we split in many disciplines as a reflection or a consequence of industrial model of education where you split and pieces and parts, and you put in a stair, and everybody works like a machine. But we're not machines. We are human beings. We are multidimensional. So, of course, I was expelled from this group, and I was just meditating one night in my home because I thought, who cares about ufology, UFO, unidentified flying object? What kind of story is that? I don't know. It's not my work. My work's not about unidentified flying objects because, in my experience, these objects are really identified. My work's about to establish a contact and communication and a collaboration with the beings behind the objects, the beings that drives the objects. I'm not doing ufology. I'm done with ufology. So I was meditating some night in my home. Everybody went to sleep, and I was meditating, and there is a lot of stories about it, but we have a short time. I was meditating, and the mind screen, just appeared this word, exoconsciencia, like exopolitics, exopolitics, the politics made from planet Earth to outside space. And the idea just came, exoconsciencia. First thing, I Google it in Portuguese, and I didn't found any reference about it. And then I try exoconsciousness, and I found Rebecca, and I wrote her, and as Maya said too, and Darlene, in a few 2 or 3 hours of phone call, we just became very, very close friends. That's the moment you realize that the project is just one. We're just split in different zip codes, but now we're coming together, and we are bringing exoconscious and exoconsciousness to this world. As in the same way that happened to me, happened to her, the word becomes flesh. It's kind of sense of direction that inhabit, that you know is inner within yourself, your being, and that gives you a new meaning for every dimension of your life. So I started to do that. Once before, of course, I want to tell you this short story of co-creation. I produced a documentary called The Deadline According to Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier was one of the greatest mediums, spiritual mediums here in Brazil in the history. He psychographed something like 500 books, and he received more than 50,000 letters from conscious and spirits of people who died to deliver it to the families. We have in Brazilian justice cases of crimes and stories was solved. What was solved by psychographies of Chico Xavier. Chico was amazing, amazing. The Brazilian Letters Academy. There is, the greatest writers, the Brazilian Letters Academy just recognized him as one of the greatest writers in Brazilian history. But of course, he denied, saying, I'm not writing anything. I'm just a post mail. I just delivered the message. Chico was amazing. He went to a program in 1971 to talk about the deadline, and saying that from 1969, a kind of deadline was given to the earth, like if we didn't have uh, a nuclear war until 2019. So the spiritual government and structure of the planet Earth would allow a really fast advancement in technology, connection, and conscious experience. And among that, devices that would facilitate the communication with the spiritual world, devices, and and would be allowed the open contact with ETs and multidimensionals. So it was a crazy story, but we just go into it. I was just in love about it, and we did it. And there is tons of stories behind the scenes of this documentary. But the question is, after the launch, I started to make conferences in Brazil and France, and I made something like 100 conferences about the deadline according to Chico Xavier. And I was in spiritualist centers, healing centers, esoteric centers, ufology groups. I met every kind of crazy group you can ever imagine. And I loved it. I loved it. But I had a particular experience in this phase because in different moments in groups, different mediums with no contact and connection just came to me and asked, hey, we saw, by clairvoyance, of course, we saw this old guy with you. It's a senior. He looks like a member of a staff or a high government because he has uniform, white hair, glasses, and he's an old guy like your grandfather. And I thought my grandfather was not a member of staff anyway. We are a very, very simple family in Brazil. But okay, the description starts to match the descriptions. And I once went to the south of Brazil, and I encountered this medium, José de Araújo. He was a amazing medium. He just with a single touch in your arms or in your hand, and he started to get all the information of your field. And he touched my hand and started to describe my childhood, entire childhood. And it was a shock for me. And at night, I gave the same lecture about the deadline, and I used to make a meditation after the lecture. And after the lecture, he was completely in trances. And he came to me and said, there was thousands of spirits here tonight. I'm shaken about it. But there was one in particular, and of course you can imagine it. He described the same uniform, white hair, glasses, and he said, his name is Alfredo. He's a kind of general. His name is Alfredo. So I remember one of my guesses at documentary deadline was Paulo Shoa, General Paulo Shoa, who is the son of General Yeshua. So I was completely shocked because why the spirit of General Yeshua wanted to talk with me. So I called to Paulo that that night and explained everything. And he said to me, that's funny to hear you saying that because I spent the week thinking about you. And I said, oh, really? Yeah, it was like Daddy was here just doing that and say, hey, call to Juliano. And then I said, okay, I will read all the books of your father. I will study all things. And then I go to Brasilia, Paulo, you living in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. I go to Brasilia and we will have this conversation. You know, when I started to read all the books, was was just I had the general himself beside me just reading the stories. And I felt such a connection, such a connection. And that's the reason I want to share with you just a little bit because he was, what I found is he was the very beginning of the exoconsciousness in Brazil. Alfredo Moacir de Mendonça Ochoa, born in Alagoas, there is northwest of Brazil, and passed away in 1996. I would let me add some comment here. He passed away in 1996, and I have my first conscious expansion experience in 1997. Isn't that coincidence? He was recognized as a serial parapsychologist. Sorry about my English, huh? I'm a Brazilian. And researcher of paranormal phenomenon. General Yeshua used it to have materialization at his home, materialization sections at his home. But check, he was a general, but he was actually a professor in Army Academy in Brazil. He taught mathematics and physics, rational mechanics for 20 years. So he was a general, but he was a man of peace. I have to say that, but because unfortunately, when we talk with our American friends and we say general, they start to shake like a conspiracy. No, he was a man of peace. He was an academic and a mystic. He did these amazing materialization sections. If you don't know what is a materialization sections, it's a kind of meeting that are realized in the darkness, and some mediums could give or expel a kind of a matter called ectoplasma. This matter is used by spirits to materialize a body and touch it and interact and have conversations. And we had a lot of groups in Brazil along the last 50 years who made really amazing experiments about it. So General Yeshua used it to live in Brasilia. Brasilia was at the end of 60s the city of the future, designed by Oscar Niemeyer, who designed the building of United Nations in New York. So the Brasilia is all futurist. It's all futurist. And there was there or near Brasilia a farm called Alexandria in the city of Alexandria, sorry, a farm. And the owner started to have experiences about ball lights and flashes and flying objects during the night. There was a paranormal research group in Brasilia.
Do you have anything to say while he's getting back on, Rebecca, about what he's said so far?
Oh, I want to take all of that energy in Brazil and stick it in my suitcase and bring it home. I just Brazilians are so, I have to say, tuned in to a frequency that we can learn from, and Juliano is an expression of that frequency. I mean, they're physicians that I met that are healers and running these amazing healing programs. There's channelers, there's spiritism. All of this is alive and well there, in part and culturally accepted. I think much of Brazil that I met with Juliano exemplifies exoconsciousness. It's amazing. I can't say enough about it. And maybe he can tell us like why it's like that there. He said it's maybe earth magnetism or something. I don't know. Juliano.
Probably. A little bit of milkshake too. Okay, for 2 decades, General Show organized this amazing program of expeditions to this farm in the night, and he, you know, got amazing contacts, amazing and direct contacts. Like, you know, they started to just see the lights and interact with the light, the ball lights, and they started to send mind messages or mental messages for these lights. Like, if we can go 2 steps closer, flash once. If we should stay here, flash twice. And with this, you know, Morse code, they started to establish a relationship with these lights and with phenomena, demonstrations. But the experience went beyond. The members of the group started to receive messages from, you know, the mind of the operators, like with a precision, a very precise details, like, we will give you, it was like, you know, noise of a radio, and some echo, and then the members just receive crystal clear the message. Static, Liani, thank you. Static. They receive this sound inside their heads, and then a clear message. We will give you a light demonstration at 9:13, 9:42, 9:58. And exactly at the scheduled time, they received the lights, flashes, and all things you can imagine. It started like that, and of course, the phenomenon developed for channeling and messages who were confirmed by the lights, the balls, the signals, and things like that. You know, the channel just receive and pronounce, and then whew, lights in the horizon, lights in the sky, lights around them, like balls, like flashes, like channels of light. They got really a materialization of a full ship. And what is really interesting about this materialization was that General had this experience of 20 years in private sections realized in his home of materialization of spirits. The ectoplasm looks like smoke at the beginning, and these smoke are going to shaping the shape of a body and then condense it, and then the spirit got the materialization. What General saw in the fields of Alexania's farm was a very similar effect, a kind of smoke running close to the land and then shaping the ship until the ship was completely materialized. So General started to think that was just a matter of dimensions, different dimensions. I'm going to running now because I bring you some, you know, some informations, and it's really nice to share about what they got at that time in Alexania's farm. And you know, while I was studying that, I was in a shower in the morning. I used to wake up kind of 5 a.m. And oh, just hold on a second, please. Sorry. Is that Juliana? Is that Lorenzo went to the pool with Juliana so I could give this lecture for you guys, but somehow the weather just, you know, is different now. So they are coming. You will listen earthquake, but now. um, I was in the shower 5 a.m. and it was like an arrow crossing my mind. And I listened the voice of General saying, "You must talk with Paulo, my son, about the Alexandria documents that are in our house." And I said it to Paulo, and Paulo has all the archives of these meetings and expeditions with documents and tapes, K7, with all the channelings of all the message they received there. And these are the Alexandria documents that now are being handled by the Circle project. We are just recovering these messages and publishing that. But imagine, I bring you some of this messages because it's really interesting. We constitute one of the immense numbers of spearheads of extraplanetary, extrasolar beings who wish to help humans. There are those who say that we are elusive, undefined, and difficult to contact. We will say that to this approach of ours will depend, after all, much more on you than us. We travel light years per second. That is why it is so easy for us to come from such distant worlds. Overcoming the density of space and speed of light, we make these apparently impossible journeys. Isn't that amazing? Check that. However, we want to make it clear that we will not propose to indicate paths and procedures for internal realizations, which will be reached through the confident steps that each one must take in the essential struggles of their own experiences. Exoconsciousness is not about to receive grace from the skies. Exoconscious is not about that. It's about to realize, to achieve, to make it happen. We do intend to make the arrogant human scientists perceive with objectivity in this still unknown way, at least a much greater horizon than the one uncovered until now, despite the long steps already taken by your intelligence. And these are a guy during these expeditions, General met Commander Zayas. And I love the ideas of Zayas because it's so close of what Institute for Exoconsciousness are doing today in the United States and what Circle is doing here in Brazil. For a human being who gets this knowledge and is able to apply it, the first necessity, the original condition, is to develop certain perceptual qualities of high level, which is already proven to possess, making them a normal employment in the research itself. Like Zayas is saying, uncover your exoconsciousness. Use your exoconsciousness to communicate, but to co-create the process of research, development, and innovation. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about a decision to realize. As Maya said, and Darlene said, it's to make it happen. Those would be the faculties that you call parapsychological in full use. I'm explaining something here. Vai tomar banho, meu amor. Dá beijo. Vem. Foi demais! Vai tomar banho então. These would be the faculties you would call parapsychology in full use. You know, exoconsciousness is the next step of parapsychological, paranormal, mediumship. Everything we have seen so far is just the phase 1. Phase 2, exoconsciousness. Combined with the corresponding consciential expansion as a condition capable of guiding new criterion of doing. Let me do something for us, just for finishing, because my son is really an earthquake.
Juliano, we have just a few minutes left, so
yes,
maybe we can wrap it up and you can go
I'm
swimming.
aware. Yeah, no, it's cold now. Sorry. Let me just share with you that once we started to read and to be aware about what General Yeshua did, of course, the spiritual work and connection of our group just was improved and grew. And we started to think about what if they are already among us. So we started this survey. You were looking at this slide. We talked with Brazilian mediums all over the country about this question. In your experience as a medium or channel, have you ever observed or had the perception of a non-physical energy, presence of a being or beings other than disembodied humans that are popular known as extraterrestrials? And from the 681 mediums we asked, 55% respond yes. You know, they are in a very religious environmental, and they respond yes. We saw ETs in our spiritual works, healing centers, or places like that. Then we asked for these 700 mediums, what has been the main agenda of these beings? And then we discovered that healing and treating health problem, 10%, teaching about realities not yet known by terrestrial human, 12%, encouraging advanced spiritual practices, 13%, orientations and specific alerts for the earthly society, 8%. That leads us to the final slide. And to me, one of the most powerful messages of Master Yashamil, the high commander of the ships that contact Yeshua and Alexandria. You earthlings are not alone in this evolutionary journey. That is why we affirm that we are here to help, but only to help the humanity that wants to be helped, having the condition to connect with us. I love that part because it's the first verb in the definition we created: connect, communicate, and co-create. That's the start of the journey. All this meditation movement around the world is just the beginning. It's just the first step. It's just opening the conscious and mind to the connection. It's just the first step for exoconscious. then they can have and receive what we can give from our experience on the same ascension path. Our journey is only much more advanced. We are trying, and I love this because this is what we are watching now with exoconsciousness. We are trying to create centers of interest among earthlings so that then, more objectively, to the way we know to be necessary, we can directly bring our active presence to the much needed improvement of the current human condition. Little by little, we are consolidating and carrying out the high policy of finding humans who are proof of our work of love without ever taking away their merit. Under our influence, they will radiate harmony, tolerance, love at the same time as a cosmic dynamism in doing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exoconscious entrepreneurship from 1960s, the middle of nowhere in Brazil. These beings were just giving us the seed of exoconscious. And the voice didn't stop talking, nevermore. Nothing of that is an absurd unless we want to impose our limitations on the infinite wealth of universal reality. That's General Yeshua. And that's the end of my presentation. That's just a little piece, but I really love it to share about you, and I hopefully you got a little bit inspired with that.